always fought wars. We fight over religion. We fight over different cultural beliefs. We fight to protect what's ours, or to take what belongs to others. Man fought wars throughout history. In 1914, war began, which was to affect the whole of Europe. When there was over, England and Mexico from January was defeated. It was said to be war to end all wars. It took many, many years for the countries involved with the First World War to recover. Everyone suffered, but in Germany life was particularly hard. It was a land in ruins, people desperate. Then a man named Adolf Hitler emerged as the new leader. He promised to make Germany great again. People turned to him to lead their country back into prosperity. As Hitler grew in power, he was to lead Germany into another terrible war.
World War II.
I'm speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we, Great Britain, heard from them by 11 o'clock that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you, no such undertaking has been received, and consequently, this country is at war with Germany. Now may God bless you all, and may He defend the right, for it is evil things we shall be fighting. I am certain that right will prevail. Yesterday, our British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain declared war with Germany at 11:15 a.m. in his Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This is because Germany invaded Poland and refused to withdraw their troops. In 1938, the Munich Agreement was made for a lifetime at Germany. 1 year later, Hitler broke the agreement because he wanted more land. Britain gave Hitler an ultimatum to take their tanks and troops out of Poland, but they just ignored this. Neville Chamberlain was having none of this. He was frustrated. So 3 days ago, Neville's soldiers left Britain to fight Germany and try and win back Poland's land. As a consequence, the war started with us, Nazi Germany, and France. My grandfather died in the war. What will happen to me in World War II? Will I be sent away? Yesterday, I spoke to Fred, aged 9. He stated that I will miss my beloved father when he goes to war. Another person I spoke to was Amber, 26. She explained that she was hopeful that her husband would come back home safe as he was sent away to war. With a positive mindset, we can stand up to Hitler and the Nazis and win this war.
As the war continues, please send your children out of the cities and towns to the relative safety of the countryside. This evacuation of children, babies, and at times the elderly will be a time of mixed emotions for all. Children find themselves living with strangers and unsure of when they will be returning to their homes and families.
Reluctantly, I rushed through the large crowd of people. They were mainly around my age or a few years younger. Most of them looked unsure, while others looked happy. I didn't get much time to look at their faces, though. I had to get on the train on time. I absolutely hated being late. As the train driver welcomed me onto the train, I soon realised how old-looking the inside of the train was. I had never been on a train before. It was quite welcoming, but I felt a sudden wave of anxiousness. I found myself walking down the aisle, searching for a familiar face. It was a while before I found my cousin sitting with the British blonde guy. He looked at me and questioned me. "Where on earth did you come from?" But before I could reply, the glum-looking lady came up to me. She was carrying a broken trolley. "3 hot chocolates," she said in a surprisingly hard voice. I took one and thanked her. They were about the most perfect-looking hot chocolates I ever did see. They were the perfect temperature on my hands, and the marshmallows were positioned on top of the whipped cream, and I soon discovered that they didn't just look amazing.
As I walked down the dirty platform with my luggage in one hand and my beloved mother's hand in the other, I was thinking about what my new family would be like. I saw other children crying and screaming for their parents. Firmly, I held my mother's hand since I didn't know when I would next see her. The swift train pulled up to the platform as its ruby red paintwork gleamed in the sunlight. I carried my gas mask in a small box across my shoulder. Wishing my mother goodbye, I hugged her tightly. Clambering onto the train, I turned and waved. Eventually, we pulled out of the station and tears dripped down my face. I hoped I would have a good family where I was going and that I would have a safer life.
To maintain morale, people would sing songs just like this one.
your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. While you police the front to light your fag, smile boys, that's the start. What's the use of worrying? It never was worthwhile. So pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly. Farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly. Farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there.
It is the autumn of 1940 and Germany has started a sustained bombing of many of the major cities and ports of Britain, the Blitz. To protect themselves, all Britons are advised to carry gas masks and obey a strict blackout each night. ARP wardens will be patrolling communities to advise and instruct people to obey the blackout and will assist during air raids. Some will spend their nights looking overhead for bombers with a powerful searchlight. In the August of 1940, even Newton Abbot was no longer free from the threat of the Blitz.
On the 20th of August 1940, Newton Abbot experienced one of its first air raids. During this raid, bombs were dropped directly on the train station. Only 15 people were killed, but 60 were seriously injured. As well as bombs, the station and 4 of the railway cottages were sprayed with machine gun fire. The raid lasted half an hour, from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. The raid was specifically aimed at the station. About 15 locomotives, 22 goods carriages, and 52 passenger carriages were badly damaged beyond repair. The rails on the track were mangled and twisted from the power of the bombs, leaving only craters and a rat's nest of rails left after the raid. Janet, aged 31, a victim of the devastating events that preceded last night, reported that she was terrified from the sound of the thundering siren, as she made a quick decision and hid under the nearest table. She watched the walls around her get blown in. She believed she was lucky to be alive. Charles, aged 21, a driver for the station, pulled out just before the raid had started. He stated that he was unsure at first what was going on, but soon realised that he was in the midst of a raid. As daylight arises, the people of Newton Abbot have come to rebuild what was lost in the raid last night. Their determination outnumbers their fear, all believing that they will win the war.
In World War II, my great-nan was 15 years old. She worked near Newton Abbot railway station. One afternoon, she was cycling home from work when the air raid started. Bombs began dropping. Luckily, she wasn't injured and made it to her shelter at home.
Something else that the people on the home front had to adapt to was a strict rationing regime.
Rationing was introduced into Britain in 1939 in order to ensure an equal and fair food distribution for all citizens. The Ministry of Food, led by Lord Frederick Wharton, was part of the government's plan to make sure no one suffered from malnourishment during the war. Rice was set fairly for both the rich and poor, allowing everyone to have enough food after the soldiers had more food. Basic foods such as meat, eggs, potatoes, milk, sugar, cheese, butter, jam, and tea leaves were rationed. However, bread, vegetables, and alcohol were not. Because vegetables were not rationed, the Dig for Victory campaign started, encouraging people to grow their own crops. Eggs were scarce, so powdered eggs were brought over from America. Every week, in order to collect their weekly rations, most women were queued with their ration book, which everyone had, even children. Each person was allowed roughly 1 egg, 1 pint of milk, and 6 rashers of bacon each week.
Through our learning so far about World War II,
We have discovered that people had to endure many hardships in order to survive. We have written some poems to try and describe some of their experiences.
War is German planes buzzing like a swarm of angry bees towards the city. Horrifying bombs plunging through the clouds like pennies from a jar. Thunderous explosions echoing through the deserted city. Spitfires dodge the machine gun fire as agile as an eagle. Monstrous buildings collapsing in on themselves like a tower of paper cards. Ruby red poppies grow along the demolished battlefield. We will remember.
War is air raid sirens screaming to warn people, gunfire crackling madly, bloodshot flames coughing on all the innocent buildings, smoke as a ghost walking in the street, children with tears in their eyes looking like a waterfall, bombs falling down like pennies from a jar, red and orange explosions destroying the city, memories become history in the making.
When the war was over, many soldiers returned home to be finally reunited with their families. The country and everyone's lives have been drastically changed over the courses of the war. We've researched some of our own family stories and would like to share some of them now.
My great-granddad proudly served in the RAF as a mechanic. He met my great-grandma before the war but had to be separated as that she was part of the land army, working on a farm. They were married after war.
George Richard Thomas Radcliffe was my great-granddad. He started as a soldier in the 8th Army and worked his way up to Sergeant Major. This meant he was responsible for between 70 and 200 men. In 1947, the Duke of Edinburgh inspected his company during the tour of the country before he married the Queen. The Duke asked Grandad about his parachute wings, which he was awarded for parachuting into Scilly.
My great-uncle Arthur was in the Royal Navy, serving on HMS Glorious, one of Britain's largest and fastest aircraft carriers. On the 18th of June 1940, whilst evacuating Allied troops from Norway, the ship, along with its destroyers, was torpedoed and sunk. Sadly, Arthur didn't survive and his body was never recovered.
My granddad was 8 years old when the war ended. He remembers the Blitz and being covered in the air shelter in the back garden. The morning after the raid, he would walk around the streets with his cousin, picking up pieces of shrapnel which came from shells fired from an anti-aircraft gun. We still have some of these fragments displayed at home.
During the war, my great-granddad was in the RAF and stationed in Egypt. This is where my great-grandparents met. My great-granny worked in a munitions factory as well as working as an air raid warden at night. Along with her close friends, she worked as a Sunday school teacher. One night, the church that they helped at was targeted and bombed by Nazi planes.
My great-great-uncle Frank was captured by the Japanese and forced out of the Berlin Railway. He passed away in a prisoner of war camp at the age of 28. A war memorial has been built to remember him and his bravery in the valley where he was born.
My grandpa was 8 when the war began. Although he was not evacuated himself, 2 other evacuees came to live with his family in Wrexham. He remembers the time when he was sent to the local shop, which was soon after bombed by German planes. As a result, he lost his hearing in one ear.
My great-granddad was called William Henry James Shepton. He was 25 years old when he went to war. William was a paratrooper in the 6th Airborne Division who was sent to capture and defend Pegasus Bridge, which was crucial to the success of D-Day landings. It had to be taken to stop the Germans reinforcing their lines. He survived the war and died peacefully at home at age 79.
I am named after my great-granddad. It is my middle name. He was a rage officer on the Lancaster bomber and flew over Germany 15 times. Once he was shot at and was in the water for 6 hours before he was rescued. He also served in Sicily and North Africa.
In World War II, my great-grandparents, Ada and Billy Morris, owned a bakery and a grocery shop in Abbey Village, Lancashire. During the war, Billy loaded up his van with pies, cakes and pastries, all made by Ada, and delivered them to the cotton mill in Abbey Village. They were in charge of handing out all the ration food to the people that lived in the village. Ada and Billy had two evacuees from Manchester, a boy and a girl, to stay with them during the conflict.